All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a story that is just massive. I mean, it spans billions of years, kicking off way before Earth was even a thing. And it's all about the rise of this super mysterious, incredibly powerful group, the Black Hats.
You know, that line really sets the stage, doesn't it? Watching from the edges of perception. It's so ominous. But look, to really get who these guys are, we have to rewind, like all the way back to the beginning. We need to see how a group like this even comes to be.
Okay, so our story kicks off billions, and I mean billions of years ago, on this planet called Akit. And the civilization there? Well, they got hooked on one single idea, an obsession that would basically steer their entire destiny, the hunt for all knowledge.
So their whole evolution wasn't really physical, it was philosophical. At first they were called the Malket, which means seekers of truth. And their whole goal was pretty noble, right? Use knowledge to make their world better. But you know how these things go? That one single purpose, it eventually drove them apart, creating this massive split, this schism that put them on a completely different path. A path toward becoming these eternal silent watchers.
Yeah, their founder, a guy named Reth, put it perfectly. He said knowledge without application is like a seed without soil. It's useless, right? So at the start, knowledge had a job to do. It was there to serve, to build, to make life better. And get this, for 10,000 years, it actually worked. They built a literal paradise.
But then, a totally new idea popped up, and it split them right down the middle. You had the builders on one side, sticking to the old ways. Knowledge has to do something. And on the other side, the observers. Their argument was totally different. They said, no, the whole point of knowledge is just to exist, to be known. And this wasn't just some friendly debate in a philosophy class. Oh no, this was a split that would completely change who they were as a species.
So the observers' philosophy sent them down this incredibly radical path, a path where they literally stripped away everything that made them, all for one single absolute purpose.
Their new leader, Durek, summed it up like this. He basically said that to be a perfect observer, you have to get rid of all your, Akatan baggage. So they decided they had to eliminate it all. Emotion, desire, love, family ties, poof, gone. Anything that could possibly muddy the waters of pure, cold, hard data.
And eventually, that philosophy became their physical reality. I mean, they literally engineered themselves out of their physical bodies. They became beings of pure energy. The whole iconic look, the dark suit, the fedora, that's just a form they adopt when they need to blend in with humanoid species. The suit is for fading into the background, and the fedora, kind of a cool little nod to their ancient history. The end result, a perfect, identical, uniform collective.
Okay, so once the transformation was complete, they locked themselves into this super strict code. They called it the Absolute Covenant. Just 4 simple, unbreakable rules that would define them for literally billions of years. But the big one, the most important one of them all, rule number 1, never, ever interfere.
And to make sure everything was perfectly ordered, perfectly stable, their numbers were fixed. Exactly 144 of them. No more, no less. Just think about that. A constant, unchanging group whose only job for eternity is to sit back and watch the universe do its thing.
And for billions of years, this worked. The Covenant held strong. They watched galaxies collide, stars go supernova, entire empires rise and crumble to dust. Just another Tuesday for them. But then, they started watching us, this young, messy, chaotic species on a little blue planet. And for one black hat, everything he thought was absolute truth was about to be challenged.
So what happened? Well, we humans, in our infinite wisdom, started messing with quantum physics, and we broke something. Big time. We tore holes in the fabric of reality itself, and these things, these sever entities, started pouring through, literally eating existence. And for the Black Hats, this was business as usual. Just another species wiping itself out. Time to open a new file, take some notes, and watch the show.
But here's where it gets complicated. What happens when your absolute, unbreakable rule of don't interfere smacks right into the raw, painful, messy reality of human tragedy? For the Black Hat we know as John, who was assigned to watch a scientist named Elena Kazan, that question suddenly became very, very real.
Imagine this. John is standing there, and Elena's brother Marco is just
broken with grief. And he looks at John and asks him, "You could have saved her. Why didn't you?" And boom! John gets hit with a question that billions of years of philosophy has no answer for. He had the power. He could have stopped it, but the rules said no. It forces the ultimate question. What's the point of watching if you can't step in?
And right then, in that moment, John snapped. He moved without thinking. He interfered. He saved Marco's life. And with that one single impulsive act, he violated the most sacred rule of his entire existence. It was the very first crack in a foundation that had been solid for eons.
Yeah, John's choice. It did more than just break a rule. It shattered their perfect unity. His decision to save one human and then all of humanity led to something that should have been impossible. A civil war. A war between these timeless, identical, emotionless beings.
So their whole society just split in two. You had Team Roth, the old guard, the traditionalists. They were all about preserving the covenant at all costs. To them, interfering would ruin the purity of their knowledge. And then you had Team John, the revisionists. They were saying, hey, what good is all this understanding if we have zero compassion? It's a pretty fundamental disagreement.
And John's question really becomes the rallying cry for his side. What is the purpose of understanding everything if we do nothing with that knowledge? I mean, that's not just a question, that's a direct challenge to the very meaning of their eternal lives. After all this time, after watching everything, he's basically asking, so what? What's the point of it all? And let me be clear, this was not some polite debate. This was an all-out war that raged across dimensions, literally warping reality. And the irony is just incredible, right? The very beings who were created to be the ultimate stable observers of the universe, well, they became the single biggest threat to its existence.
So, out of all that chaos, all that cosmic, reality-breaking war, something new was born. A new understanding was hammered out, one that would change the Black Hats and what they stood for, forever.
Somehow, John and Wraith managed to find a middle ground. They created a new covenant. It wasn't just don't interfere anymore, it was more like observation with context, understanding with a purpose. It was a compromise, a new balance that actually took the best of both of their ideas. And just like that, a whole new era began for them. They stopped being these cold, identical machines. They started showing little hints of individuality. You'd see one with his fedora tilted just so, or another with a slightly different suit. They finally got it. They weren't just outside observers looking in. They were actually a part of the whole cosmic tapestry they'd been studying for so long. Which, leaves us with a pretty deep thought to chew on. Their whole story kind of forces us to look at ourselves, doesn't it? If you think about the universe as this giant consciousness just trying to observe and understand itself, well then, what part do we play in all that? Are we just watching? Or are we part of the show?